Sava Ser Gehun, famous story written by Munshi Premchand in English. The story, Sava Ser Gehun, 1¼ kilo of wheat, reflects the dominance of the moneylender system in both cities and villages, and the pain of the farmers oppressed by it. Premchand vividly portrays the sufferings of farmers constantly burdened and exploited by this system, and raises the question, how long will farmers continue to be crushed by moneylenders? Let's listen to the world-famous story written by Munshi Premchand. In a certain village, there lived a farmer named Shankar. He was a simple and poor man. He minded his own business, neither taking from nor giving to anyone, without any involvement in deceptions or quarrels. He had no trace of cunning or deceit. He didn't worry about being cheated. He was uneducated. If food was available, he ate it. If not, he contented himself with herbs. And if even herbs were not available, he drank water and went to sleep, taking the name of Lord Ram. But when a guest arrived at his door, he had to abandon his frugal lifestyle. Especially when a sage or saint came by, he was obliged to engage with worldly matters. He could sleep hungry himself, but how could he let a saint go to bed hungry? After all, they were devotees of God. One evening, a saint arrived and set up camp at Shankar's door. The saint had an imposing presence, draped in yellow garments, with matted hair, a brass pot in hand, wooden sandals on his feet, spectacles on his eyes, a complete look of one of those saints who meditate in the palaces of the rich, visit temples on airplanes, and indulge in fine food while practicing yoga. In the house, there was only barley flour, but how could Shankar serve that to the saint? In ancient times, barley might have been of some importance, but in modern times, barley is heavy and hard to digest for such saints. He was greatly concerned about what to serve the saint. Finally, he decided to borrow some wheat flour. He went around the village but couldn't find any. The village was full of men, but not a single deity, and where would men get such divine food? Fortunately, the village priest had a little wheat. Shankar borrowed 1¼ seers of wheat from him and asked his wife to grind it. The saint ate, slept soundly, and left in the morning after giving his blessings. The priest would collect grains twice a year from the village. Shankar thought to himself, how can I return just 1¼ seers of wheat? I'll give him a little more when I hand over the grains. When the priest came in the harvest season, Shankar gave him about 1½ seers of wheat and felt relieved, thinking he had repaid the debt. The priest never asked for the wheat again. Shankar, being so straightforward, had no idea that he would need to be reborn just to repay those 1¼ seers of wheat. 7 years passed. The village priest had transitioned from a Brahman to a moneylender, and Shankar had gone from being a farmer to a laborer. His younger brother, Mangal, had separated from him. When they were together, both were farmers, but after the separation, both became laborers. Shankar had tried hard to prevent the division, but circumstances forced him. On the day the separate cooking fires were lit, he broke down in tears. From today, brothers would become enemies. If one cried, the other would laugh. If one faced a tragedy, the other would celebrate. The bond of love, the bond of blood, was breaking today. Shankar had worked hard to establish the dignity of his family. He had nurtured it with his own blood, and seeing it uprooted made his heart ache. For 7 days, he did not eat a morsel of food. He worked all day under the scorching sun of the month of Jade, summer, and at night, would wrap himself up and sleep. This intense grief and unbearable pain burned his blood, melting away his flesh and fat. He fell sick and did not rise from his bed for months. Now, how would he survive? Half of his 5 bighas of land was gone, and he had only 1 ox left. How could he farm with just 1 ox? Eventually, the situation deteriorated to the point where farming became just a name, and the burden of supporting his family shifted entirely onto his labor. 7 years passed. One day, when Shankar returned home from work, the priest stopped him on the way and said, "Shankar, come tomorrow and settle the account with the seed bank. You've owed me 5½ mounds of wheat for a long time, and you haven't made any effort to pay it back. Do you plan to swallow it?" Shankar, surprised, said, "When did I ever take wheat from you that it has now become 5½ mounds? You are mistaken. I owe you neither a grain of wheat nor a single penny. The priest replied, It's exactly this dishonest intention that has left you in such a state, unable to afford food. Then the priest reminded him of the 1¼ seers of wheat that Shankar had taken from him 7 years ago. Shankar was stunned into silence upon hearing this. He thought of how many times he had given the priest wheat from his harvest. The priest had done nothing for him. Whenever he came to check horoscopes or consult for auspicious timings, he would always take a donation. Shankar thought, such selfishness. Over a meager 1¼ seers of wheat, he has made a huge deal as if it's some sort of curse that will consume me. If he had mentioned it even once during all these years, I would have returned the wheat. Was he silently waiting for this? Shankar then said, Panditji, I may not have given you that exact amount, but many times I have given you 1 or 2 seers from the harvest. Now you are asking for 5½ mounds. Where will I get that much from? The priest replied, A grain is a grain, a gift is a gift. Whatever you may have given me from the harvest doesn't count. Whether you gave 4 times the amount, it's not recorded. Your name still has 5½ mounds written against it. You can get the accounts checked by whomever you wish. If you pay, I will cross your name off the list. If not, the debt will only keep growing. Shankar pleaded, Panditji, why are you tormenting a poor man like me? I can barely feed myself. Where will I get this much wheat from? The priest coldly replied, Get it from wherever you want, but I won't leave even a single grain. If you don't pay me here, you'll have to answer to God. Shankar trembled. If he were an educated man, he would have said, Fine, I'll pay in God's house. Surely, the punishment there won't be worse than here. At least, I have no proof of the debt here. So why worry? But Shankar wasn't that clever or cunning. It wasn't just any debt, it was a Brahman's debt. If his name remained in the ledger, he would go straight to hell. The very thought made his hair stand on end. He said, Maharaj, I'll repay you everything here. Why should I wait to give it in God's house? In this life, I'm already suffering, why should I sow thorns for the next? But this is unjust. You've made a mountain out of a molehill. As a Brahmar, you shouldn't have done this. Had you asked for the repayment at the time, why would I be burdened today? I will pay, but you will have to answer to God. The priest said, You are the one who should be afraid of God, not me. Up there, everyone is family, rishis and sages are all Brahmins. Whatever happens, we'll manage it. So, when will you pay? Shankar replied, I don't have anything right now. I'll have to borrow from someone to repay you. The priest retorted, I won't accept that. It's been 7 years. I'll not show any leniency. If you can't give the wheat, then write a promissory note. Shankar said, I have to repay you, so whether you take the wheat or a written document, it's up to you. What price will you charge for it? The priest said, Since you are willing to pay, I'll take the market price. Why should I earn a bad reputation over a few pounds? They calculated the amount, and the cost of the wheat came to 60 rupees. A promissory note for 60 rupees was written with interest set at 3 rupees per 100. If not paid within a year, the interest rate would increase to 3½ rupees per 100. Shankar also had to separately pay 8 annas for the stamp and 1 rupee for drafting the document. The entire village criticized the priest for his greed, but not to his face. Everyone needed to deal with the moneylender, so who would dare confront him? Shankar struggled hard for the entire year. Before the deadline, he had made up his mind to repay the money. Even earlier, he would often skip lighting the stove at noon and manage on leftover bits. Now, even that stopped. At night, they only saved food for the child. Shankar used to spend 1 paisa daily on tobacco, his only vice, which he could never quit. But now, even that was sacrificed in his fierce resolve. He smashed his pipe, broke the hookah, and crushed his tobacco container into pieces. His clothes, which had already reached the limits of frugality, became even thinner, until they were practically reduced to the bare minimum. In the freezing cold of Magh, winter, which could penetrate the very bones, he survived only by keeping himself near the fire. The result of Shankar's unwavering determination was better than expected. By the end of the year, he had managed to save 60 rupees. He thought he would give these 60 rupees to Pandit ji and say, "Maharaj, I will soon bring the remaining amount as well." 15 rupees are not much, surely Pandit ji would agree to that. With the money in hand, Shankar went and placed the rupees at Pandit ji's feet. Pandit ji, surprised, asked, "Did you borrow from someone?" Shankar replied, "No Maharaj, by your blessings, I earned good wages this year." Pandit ji said, "But this is only 60 rupees. Shankar responded, "Yes Maharaj, please take this for now. I will give you the remaining amount in 2 or 3 months. Please free me from the debt." Pandit ji coldly replied, "I will only free you from debt when you pay every last paisa. Go and bring my remaining 15 rupees. Shankar pleaded, "Maharaj, please have mercy. I don't even have a guarantee of food for the evening. I live in the village, I will surely pay you eventually." Pandit ji retorted, "I don't entertain such problems, nor do I waste time in long conversations. If I don't receive the full amount, the interest will rise to 3.5 rupees per 100 starting today. You can either keep the money at home or leave it here with me." Shankar, resigned, said, "Fine, take what I have now. I'll go and figure out a way to bring the remaining 15 rupees. Shankar searched the entire village, but no one gave him any money. Not because they didn't trust him or didn't have the money, but because no one dared to interfere with Pandit ji's prey. After action, a reaction is inevitable, this is nature's rule. Despite his year-long struggle, when Shankar couldn't succeed in repaying the full debt, his carefulness turned into despair. He realized that if he could barely save 60 rupees after enduring so much hardship in 1 year, what chance did he have of saving double that amount? When the burden of debt is bound to remain on his head, what difference does it make whether it's a full mound, 40 kilograms, or a quarter mound more? His spirit was crushed. He developed a dislike for hard work. Hope is what creates courage. Hope brings light, strength, and life. It is hope that drives the world forward. Shankar, now hopeless, became indifferent. The needs he had suppressed for a whole year were no longer beggars at his door but witches, perched on his shoulders, refusing to leave without their offerings. There is a limit to how many patches one can put on clothes. Now, if Shankar earned any money, he wouldn't save it anymore. Sometimes Shankar would buy clothes, and sometimes food items. Where he used to smoke tobacco earlier, he now developed a habit for ganja and charas, drugs. He no longer cared about repaying the debt, as if he owed nothing to anyone. Earlier, even if he was unwell and trembling, he would still go to work. Now, he looked for excuses to avoid going to work. 3 years passed this way. During this time, Pandit ji never once asked for his money. Like a skilled hunter, he was waiting for the right moment to strike his target. It wasn't his style to provoke the prey before it was time. One day, Pandit ji summoned Shankar and showed him the accounts. After deducting the 60 rupees that Shankar had paid earlier, the amount he still owed had grown to 120 rupees. Shankar, overwhelmed, said, "I will only repay this in another lifetime, not in this one. It's impossible in this lifetime." Pandit ji replied, "I will take it in this lifetime. If not the principal amount, you will at least have to pay the interest." Shankar responded, "I have one bull, take that. I have a small hut, take that too. What else do I have?" Pandit ji said, "What use do I have for a castrated bull? You have plenty to give me." Shankar asked, "What else do I have, Maharaj?" Pandit ji replied, "There's nothing else, but you are still here, aren't you? After all, you go to work as a laborer somewhere. I also need a laborer to help me with my farming. Work for me in return for the interest. When you can repay the principal amount as well. The truth is, you can't go work anywhere else now. Until you repay my debt, you don't own any property. how can I trust you with such a large debt? Who will guarantee it? You will have to give me the interest each month. If you can't even earn enough elsewhere to pay me the interest, how will you ever repay the principal? Shankar asked, Maharaj, if I work to pay the interest, what will I eat? Pandit ji replied, you have a wife and children. Will they just sit idle, as if they've lost their arms and legs? I'll give you half a roughly half a kilogram, of barley daily for your sustenance. I'll also give you a blanket every year for covering yourself, and I'll make you a simple garment too. What more do you need? It's true that others may pay you 6 annas a day, but I don't have that need. I'm only keeping you to pay off your debt. After thinking deeply for a while, Shankar said, Maharaj, this is a lifetime of slavery. Pandit ji said, whether you call it slavery or labor, I won't let you go until you've repaid my money. If you try to run, your son will have to repay it. Yes, when no one is left, then it will be a different matter. There was no appeal against this decision. Who would stand as a guarantor for a laborer? Where could he seek refuge? Where would he run? From the next day, Shankar started working at Pandit ji's house. For the cost of Sava Ser 1¼ ser of wheat, he had to put the chains of lifelong slavery on his feet. The unfortunate man found solace only in the thought that all this suffering must be the result of his past life's deeds. His wife had to do work she had never done before, and the children starved for even a single grain of food. But Shankar could do nothing except watch in silence. The wheat grains hung over his head like a curse, as if they were an eternal burden. After working as a slave for 20 years at Pandit ji's house, Shankar finally departed from this world of sorrow. The debt of 120 rupees still weighed heavily on his head. Pandit ji, however, did not consider it appropriate to trouble the poor man even in God's court. Instead, he caught hold of Shankar's grown-up son. To this day, his son works at Pandit ji's house. When or if this debt will ever be repaid, only God knows.